Hi guys, I'm Saintvicious, and I'm going to be doing my patch 9.14b TFT rundown. So the first notes, everybody knows that assassins are insanely overpowered. They're just disgustingly strong. So I think that they're trying to target that until they come out with their next big patch next week. So they lowered assassin's crit damage a little bit in the earlier rank, and then made it the same in the second rank. However, due to the way that critical strike damage is being calculated, it's actually going to end up being like around a 25% less damage overall on your assassins. So this also probably, I'm pretty sure this includes Akali's ultimate critical strike. So you're going to run into less situations where Akali's just like one-shotting your volley bear or whatever beefy target you have with her ultimate, and it feels like there's like nothing you can do about it. This also like affects Zed, Rengar, like all the other assassins as well. Sorcerer, it got buffed to 45%, which I like a lot. I think that 6 sorcerers is incredibly hard to run and like not very viable just due to the meta. But I think that 3 sorcerers is starting to like really show its strength in builds like Yordles. I've seen it in demon builds. You can run it in like even in brawlers or something like that. So I think that you're gonna. Oh, and also wild sorks. The OG sorcerer build. So I think that this is a pretty good buff to some of those builds, and I think that it's going to bring them up more into like a tier class. So we'll keep an eye out on that. Wild got buffed to 10%. This is actually not really a buff because due to the way that they changed attack speed being calculated in the patch before, it ended up like severely hurting wild buff in the way that it calculates attack speed. So really all this does is kind of like bring it back more in line with what it was before they did that attack speed change. So kind of expect the power level of wild to be around that. Maybe you could play wild sorks now since assassins got nerfed a little bit, and also brawlers and elementals got nerfed a little bit as well. I don't think that they'll be like a top tier class, but they're definitely something that's going to be viable. Elementalist, they nerfed the golem by another 300 HP on this patch. I still think that Elementalist is still pretty damn strong. It's like such a strong mid game thing. All the units are good. Like Cannon is an exceptional unit, one of the best 3-cost units in the game, if not the best units in the game. Elementalist is still just really strong in general. So I don't really think that this nerf does that much, in my opinion. Ari, everybody they hate on this unit. She is kind of a Papega unit. She like misses her ult half the time, and her damage can be kind of lackluster without Illudens. They buffed the damage by 25 at rank 2 and by 50 at rank 3. I think if you actually put Illudens on Ari early, she can actually be a very strong carry and get you through your early and mid game, especially when you're doing a wild transition. So I think that this buff is like actually pretty decent and shouldn't be overlooked. And also combined with this with the fact that you're probably going to be having 3 sorcerers in your composition later with Ari as well. So she'll do like a decent amount of damage. I think that she'll be an okay unit. Akali is hands down the most broken unit in the entire game. Absolutely disgusting unit, not balanced at all. They lowered her health by 50 and her attack speed by a whopping 0.05. So I guess if you combine this with the nerf to assassins, maybe this will tone her down a little bit. I still think that she's going to be disgusting. You can probably throw in her a lot of different compositions that aren't even assassins, like a sorcerer, Akali composition, or some crazy shit like that. But I think that Akali is still going to be super broken. But maybe you're going to have like a little bit more room to burst her since it's 50 less health, which is like really not that much of a difference. Evelyn, they buffed her attack damage by 10 and lowered her health by 50. Not really that much of a change on her. Cannon, they lowered his damage by 5. That's pretty reasonable, I think. I think Cannon's still extremely powerful. His ultimate is super strong. And also they buffed Morellonomicon, which we're going to talk about later in the patch, which is, one of Cannon's core items in Yordle builds and Elementalist builds. So I think that Cannon's still going to be like a star of this patch and one of the strongest units. So keep an eye out for him. Mordekaiser, they buffed his health by 50. Whoopee. It doesn't do anything. So I know there's some more changes intended for him on PB, and they're buffing Knights on PB. But this might be just a way of, kind of tweaking him a little bit before that patch hits. I still think he's kind of garbage, but I'm sure they'll find a way to change him later on next week. Poppy, I'm keeping an eye out on Poppy. I've been actually playing around with her a lot as a carry unit. They buffed her ultimate damage by 100 on rank 2 and 200 on rank 3. And keep in mind that on rank 3, her ultimate hits, it can actually hit up to 3 targets, and it stuns them for like 4 seconds or some crazy thing like that. So Poppy is actually really, really insane with her ultimate damage. And you could think about Poppy in a build like Yordle's, where you could put like a Sojourn on her. And it's also very easy to get 3 Sorks. So think about 700 damage plus 45%, to 3 targets. That's going to be an absolutely insane ultimate. So Poppy's like my star of this patch. She's the unit I think you should look out for. I think that you can even be played in mid game as a unit to get you through if you're playing like a knight build to transition. I really, really, really like Poppy, and I think that she's like my favorite unit on this patch overall. Rengar, they buffed his damage by 10, but you got to remember they also nerfed the critical strike damage on assassins, so this just kind of like brings that in line. Tristana, they lowered her attack speed by 0.5. Not really that big of a deal. I still think that she'll be fine. Gunslingers are probably still going to be fine as well. Volibear, they lowered his armor by 5 and his attack speed by 0.1. So I played around with this a little bit on PvE and on live. The attack speed definitely felt noticeable, especially when you start getting attack speed items due to the way that the attack speed is calculated. I think that this change is just going to make it a little bit harder for Volibear to be your solo carry in a brawler composition. You're going to have to rely, maybe on like some other damage sources like a 2-star brand, or like Kennen getting Morello, or getting your Anivia powered up. So I just think that Volibear is still a viable unit, still very strong, but he's just not going to be able to like 1v9 solo carry your team. He nerfed Curse Blade by 5%. Doesn't really seem like an insane nerf, but I mean, it's still noticeable. I still think that Gunslingers will still be really strong. You give the Pirate bonus, and I think that still like going to be, one of the top compositions, even with the Triss nerf and even with this Curse Blade nerf. Infinity Edge, they buffed the critical strike damage by 50%. I think I read earlier in the post that this really just like evens off to the way that they nerfed critical strike calculation. So it actually ends up just doing the same amount of crit damage as it was doing before. Lock of the Iron Solari, this is hotfixed, at the beginning of the weekend. They lowered it by 100. I still think Locket is a good early and mid game item. However, it falls off very hard late game. You can basically just use it to get like an early health advantage and econ advantage, and just use it to do that. But I don't recommend building it late game. And then Morellonomicon, they buffed the damage by 5%. This is actually what the damage was before they nerfed it, when people were running like Broken Garen and like all these other like insane units. So I think keep an eye out on this item. I think it's really disgusting on units like Anivia and Kennen and things that can like constantly apply multiple ultimate applications. And I think that you could maybe even toss it on a Garen in the early game, and he could probably still do an insane amount of damage. So overall, my opinions on the patch, I think this is a smaller patch. Preparing for the big patch is going to be next week. And I think that really the main things that this patch did was it lowered some of the S tier compositions like Ninja Elementals and Volibear with Brawlers and Glacials, and it brought them more down into like an A tier class rather than just being like the supreme S tier, which just dominated every other composition. So I think that maybe the playing field will be a little bit more open this week. You could probably play like Demons, Yordles, Gunslingers, maybe even Wild Shapeshifters. I'm still on the fence about them. But that's like my main takeaway from this patch. So hope you guys enjoyed my rundown, and I'll see you guys next week.